No one will notice.
What makes you think that Encom is any closer to finding it?
Because I know who else is looking for it, alright?
Hey folks, welcome to another marvelous video. Sci-fi as a genre has continued to capture our imaginations for generations now. We've traversed the final frontier, journeyed to the Earth's core, and explored distant galaxies and civilizations thanks to it. One of the more underrated sci-fi franchises, which has always had a dedicated fan base, is finally capturing mainstream attention thanks to the relevance of the topics it covers, like AI. When the first Tron film came out in 1982, it was already way ahead of its time, thanks to its cutting-edge visuals and plot points like artificial intelligence, and the risks involved in its implementation. Every great story needs a great villain, just as much as it needs a stellar protagonist. What's unique in Tron is that the human antagonist, Ed Dillinger Sr., has an enduring legacy that can be felt even 40 years later in the latest film Tron Ares. In the ever-evolving digital frontier of the Tron universe, no name carries as much weight or as much controversy as Dillinger. Spanning 3 generations, the Dillinger family has played a defining role in shaping the relationship between humanity and the digital realm, often blurring the line between innovation and exploitation. The Dillingers are more than just a family. They're a symbol of humanity's desires to control the systems we create, even as those systems begin to outgrow and outmaneuver us. With Tron Ares out in theaters now, we felt this was the perfect time to explore this rich franchise and its cast further. In this video, we'll explore how, through their rise, fall, and resurgence, the Dillingers reflect both the promise and the peril of meddling with technology far beyond one's control, as well as their legacy and impact within this franchise. So join us, fellow users, as we dive into the grid once more and explore Tron's most dubious family, the Dillingers. Let's begin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Exploring the Dillinger family tree. Edward Dillinger Sr. The first time we encounter the nefarious Dillinger family is through their patriarch, Edward Dillinger Sr., in the 1982 film Tron. Ed Sr. was an ambitious and power-hungry programmer at Incom, who desired to seize control of the company and the grid. To this end, he steals the revolutionary video game codes of a gifted programmer called Kevin Flynn. He then discredits Flynn for his work and claims the game as his own creation, which led to a meteoric rise to the company. Eventually, he gains enough power within Incom, which allows him to fire Flynn from the company. Complicit in aiding Ed Dillinger was a program called the Master Control Program, created by company founder Walter Gibbs, which Ed Dillinger altered and corrupted to serve his own purpose. MCP was originally a simple chess program, which, after its modification, had become self-aware and begun to grow beyond its original function. Soon, it began stealing and forcibly acquiring programs and codes that Ed Dillinger found noteworthy, allowing him to take credit for their work, just as he had done with Flynn's games. This allowed him to finally gain control of Incom as its CEO. He would also go on to create the secondary antagonist of the original Tron film, Sark. This program was meant to be the second-in-command to the MCP. It was tasked with catching any programs that rebelled against the MCP, along with those that were considered redundant. It would put these programs through gladiatorial games in the grid in order to execute them. While Ed Dillinger's reign of terror seemed like it had no end, his undoing would come at the end of one of his own creations. The MCP, having become increasingly sentient, notified him that it would be hacking into the Pentagon and the Kremlin. If Dillinger interfered or refused cooperation, the program would expose his fraudulent dealings to the world. In essence, he had become a pawn to the very thing that he had created. After Flynn and Tron take down the MCP and Sark, it's largely presumed that Ed Sr. was exposed for his fraud and subsequently removed from Incom in disgrace. While he never entered the grid himself, his influence would have long-term ramifications for all involved, and would shape the lore of the Tron universe irreversibly. Edward Dillinger Jr. Unlike his father, Edward Dillinger Jr. is not set up directly as a power-hungry and evil antagonist. He appears briefly during the 2010 film Tron Legacy as a programmer within Incom. Despite his father's checkered history with the company, it seems that Ed Jr. has been able to find employment there. He's seen working on a brand new operating system called the Incom OS 12, formerly known as the Flynn OS. He's shown to be as talented, if not more, when it comes to programs and coding as his father. He has a cryptic and cool personality, which he displays in his short screen time in the second film. When Sam Flynn, the son of Kevin Flynn, hacks into the Incom mainframe and delays the launch of the OS 12, Jr. is one of the few people who seems completely calm and proceeds to terminate the interruption. However, when he fails, he simply tells the company chairman Mackey to write it off as Incom's generosity to the public. While this might seem like him being cheeky towards Mackey, it highlights that his shrewdness goes beyond just computer knowledge. Unfortunately for us, we don't get to see much more of him as he makes his exit off-screen in the film. However, his enigmatic personality and clear display of wit, along with the limited screen time, leave room for a lot of speculation. Many people suspected that he had joined Incom to continue his father's legacy and succeed where he failed. Others were of the opinion that Junior's story would lead to the redemption of the Dillinger name, as he would prove to be a completely different man from his father. An interesting fact about this character is that it was portrayed by none other than the acclaimed star of Peaky Blinders and Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy, in an uncredited role. Elizabeth Dillinger. Up until Legacy, we had assumed that Edward Dillinger Sr. only had a son, but it's revealed to us that he also had a daughter called Elizabeth Dillinger. Following her father's death, Elizabeth would take up the reins of her family as the CEO of Dillinger Systems, a rival company to Incom. She would then go on to pass the baton to her only son, Julian Dillinger. However, due to Julian taking the company in a direction that followed in the footsteps of her late father, Elizabeth would try to step in and stop her son. Unfortunately for her, she's killed during her attempts to do so by a program called Athena, created by her son. Unlike her evil father and enigmatic brother, her moral alignment makes her one of the few Dillingers who could be categorized as good. Julian Dillinger. The small hope that the Dillingers could be redeemed that had been born due to Elizabeth was to be quickly stamped out by the scion of the family, Julian Dillinger. Julian is a third-generation Dillinger from the Tron franchise, who takes over from his mother Elizabeth as the new CEO of Dillinger Systems. It becomes quickly apparent that Julian intends to take the company in a completely different direction from what his mother had been doing. Initially, we're led to believe that he aims to merge the grid with the real world to sell super soldiers like Ares and Athena, along with weapons from the grid, to the highest bidders, driven by his greed for money. However, it soon becomes apparent that his ambition extends well beyond simply making money. You see, Julian was arguably the smartest Dillinger in terms of his knowledge of computers and programs. He had managed to find a way to manifest the grid into the real world, something which not even Kevin Flynn or his grandfather and uncle had managed to do. The problem was that his manifested programs and constructs could only survive in the real world for a mere 29 minutes, following which they would automatically disintegrate. He had learned that the solution to this problem was something known as the permanence code, which, as the name suggests, would allow things from the grid to permanently exist within the real world. He had engineered Ares, a sophisticated AI program, to hunt this permanence code in order to bring it to him. However, what he had not foreseen was that Ares would become increasingly self-aware and betray him just like the MCP had done to his grandfather all those years ago. However, unlike the MCP that grew to be evil, Ares chose the side of good and decided to fight for the survival of programs like himself and humans, whose existence Julian threatened. This was because Julian intended to incite a war between these two groups. In the aftermath of the devastation, he would be able to create human and AI hybrids, which he could control to take over the world and the grid, which would be fused by that time. His plans would, however, fail when he would be seemingly killed in combat against his creation, Ares, after he is also betrayed by Athena, who had stayed loyal to him. The end of the Dillingers, or just the beginning? In the penultimate battle of Tron Ares, after Ares managed to defeat Athena while his team shuts down her connection to the Dillinger grid, she finally fades away, having gone beyond the 29-minute limit. With her death, Julian Dillinger's deranged plan also begins to collapse around him. As the authorities close in on his position, in a desperate act to escape judgment, Julian reverses the tech that allowed him to manifest grid programs into the real world and digitizes himself. His failure and subsequent digitization bring an end to the Dillinger family in the real world with regard to their known members, as we know nothing about the whereabouts of his uncle and his family. However, in the mid-credit scene, we learn that Julian Dillinger manages to survive his transformation and manifests in an obscure Dillinger grid. There he comes face to face with an identity disk, as the name Sark echoes in the background. Just as he reaches out and touches the disc, he begins to shout in agony as an armor familiar to old fans of the franchise forms around him before it cuts to black. The armor enveloping Julian Dillinger is that of Sark, the secondary antagonist of the original 1982 film. It seems that while things might have ended for the Dillinger family in the real world, their legacy, through his rebirth as the new Sark, will continue to haunt the Tron franchise for years to come. It's ironic that in the end, Julian Dillinger is taken over by a program created by his own grandfather. What is Dillinger Systems? The latest installment of the Tron franchise introduces Dillinger Systems, a company that's said to have been created by Ed Dillinger after his disgraceful exit from Incom, following the debacle related to the MCP and Sark. By the time of Tron Ares, it's a global conglomerate that rivals Incom and is led by his grandson Julian after his mother Elizabeth had handed him the reins of the company. Dillinger Systems deals in cutting-edge AI technology and its applications in the real world in sectors like defense, medicine, and research. Due to the dubious history of its founder and the Dillinger family, the company does still retain a shady reputation. The Dillinger system had created its own grid separate from Incom's and had made a groundbreaking invention that allowed them to manifest the grid and its programs into the real world. However, following the events of Tron Ares, this technology might not see the light of day again. Now that Julian Dillinger has digitized himself and there are no known members of the Dillinger family in the picture, the fate of the company is up in the air. Dillinger Systems is the legacy of its nefarious creator, and it ironically provided the platform to continue the family's troubled legacy, which eventually led to their total collapse. What is the legacy of the Dillinger family? The legacy of the Dillingers in the Tron universe is a multi-generational story of control, ambition, and the consequences of digital power woven through generations of the Dillinger family, from Ed Dillinger Sr. to Julian Dillinger. Their misuse of the grid for personal gain should not, however, undermine their genius in developing it, even if these same innovations ultimately lead to their downfall. In narrative terms, the Dillingers serve as a foil to Kevin Flynn, his creation, and his family. If Flynn and his creation serve to showcase the idealism behind the grid and its creation, the Dillingers are there to highlight the power and dark side of the grid. Ultimately, the Dillingers are an integral part of the Tron franchise. It'll be interesting to see what the future holds in store for them. Marvelous verdict. The Dillinger family stands as a central pillar of ambition, control, and moral decay within the Tron universe. A lineage defined not just by technological innovation, but by a relentless desire to dominate the digital frontier. From Ed Dillinger's creation to the Master Control Program, to Julian Dillinger's weaponization of the grid and pursuit of digital immortality, each generation has pushed further into the ethical gray zones of artificial intelligence and virtual reality. While Elizabeth Dillinger attempted to break the cycle and served as the family's moral compass, her efforts were ultimately crushed by the very forces her lineage helped unleash, just like her father. In the end, the Dillingers symbolize a recurring theme in Tron: the danger of mistaking control for progress, and the tragic downfall that follows when power is pursued without responsibility. We hope that with this video, you were able to increase your knowledge about the Tron universe. If you want more content like this, be sure to check out the rest of our channel. We post daily videos featuring all of your favorite anime, movies, and TV shows. For now though, it's time for us to bid you farewell. Thank you for sticking with us right to the end of the video. See you soon in the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.